Hello, viewers, subscribers. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about a little bit about C24 slash C14 line. Okay, so everyone knows these trucks have gotten insanely popular, or, a pretty good bang for the buck. And the upgrades are pretty inexpensive as well. Granted, their stuff's not in hobby shops, but I don't know, I've gotten where I've liked them because they're affordable for a lot of us. A lot of us can't afford to have a lot of money to put into RCs, and some of us like to be able to RC on the cheap. Hence the name of my channel, No Budget RC, as in I don't have any budget. Anyways, so we're going to talk about C24s and C14s a little bit. So anyway, these trucks originally came out somewhere around 2017, 2018. And when they came out, they were non-proportional. They ran a nickel metal hydride battery. Okay. What I mean by non-proportional is that I think the throttle might have been proportional at that point, which means basically what that means is the speed of the truck is according to how much input you give on the remote. And proportional steering is the same thing. Is the more you turn it, the more the wheels turn. To where a non-proportional, you turn it and the wheels go all the way, and the throttle. And then if it's non-proportional throttle, the throttle is wide open. There's no in between. So anyway, these trucks came out non-proportional, nickel metal hydride battery. Okay, and I've seen old videos where people talked about they were like around $30-40. And a lot of people made fun of them because they're like, oh, those are crap, those are toys. Okay, but it was a start, which we'll get into. Okay, and pretty much the same models here. And I think previous to that, WPL was doing a lot of military stuff. They had I think they called it the B1, which is the B14. And I mean, they were kind of the same thing, but we're talking about C24s today. So basically, yeah, they started out like that. Okay. And gradually it started where you could get a lot of upgrades for them. And then from what I've noticed online, what I'm saying here is not gospel, just to let you know. Around 4 or 5 years ago, from what I've seen in videos, they made them proportional steering and throttle. And then also they've changed motor size over that time as well. I think they originally had a 130 or a 150, and then they went to a 180. Okay. And so basically, and then just recently, I'm not sure exactly when, they went to a counter-rotating gearbox on these. For those that you don't know, the nice thing about the counter-rotating gearbox is you don't get what is called torque flex, or some people might call it torque roll, which is where when you give it throttle, it'll lean, or they call it torque lean. That's another phrase. And you'll give it throttle and it'll do this, whichever way the drive lines are going. Now the counter-rotating glove box, which means the drive shafts are moving different directions, gets rid of that to where you don't have that problem, which will eliminate it leaning over and tire rub and sometimes bump steer, stuff like that. So that's how they went recently with these. Is with that. And then same thing, C14. It's basically the same thing with just like a flatbed. Okay. And so now these trucks are very, very popular. In fact, actually right now, at the time of this video, if you go to the WPL website, these two trucks are sold out. They don't have them. They're sold out. And even the C24-1, which is a slightly different version, which is what the grill, and the C24-1 has this grill and bumper on it. And then it has like a simulated bed liner. I don't have an example right now. I've owned several of them, but I don't have an example right now. Now, when you get these out of the box, you have to put parts on them. Okay, so basically, when you take this out of the box, you got to put the wipers on. You got to put the door handles on. Yeah, you got to put the back window in the canopy. You got to put the tail lights on. Okay, and then the snorkel. Okay, and the mirrors. Now, a little hint about these that will happen if you put this thing and you put all the accessories on and you don't glue anything, is the snorkel gets lost. The snorkel scoop here gets lost very, very easy. There's a guy I work with that I sold him my 24-1, and he has lost like a half dozen of these, and they haven't been glued on. I always super glue mine on so they don't come off. And so that is one thing that gets lost. Sometimes you can lose wipers on them. I haven't had an issue with that. But the other thing, if you don't glue them, is also mirrors. As you will notice, this one, the red one over here, doesn't have any mirrors on it because one of them got lost. I pulled the other one for the beater truck over there to do something, which I'll show you later. So that's things I recommend you glue. You don't have, and really you just put like a little bit of glue where it slides into the body, and that. Usually the door handles, you don't have to do that. Although on the canopy, one thing I like to do on the canopy is push it through as much as I can because they're hard to install on that canopy window. Yeah, on this canopy window. And what I'll do with these is I'll get it on as far as I can, and then I'll go on the back side and put glue on the back side, which will help keep it from coming off. Okay, so then when it comes out of the box, the next thing you do, you put your accessories on, okay, and you got to put these decals in for the taillights. Okay, a little tip there. The decals on this they're on a clear, attached to a clear. You put them on there, and then you got to make sure you get it stuck really good. Make sure the surface is clean, and then you take the clear and you peel it off. Sometimes what happens, like you see a little bit on the floor here, sometimes some of that comes off. And so like sometimes when you do these taillights, the clear is very hard to get off. So sometimes I'll just take like like something sharp, like a pick tool or something like that, and just poke the holes through, and then put the tail light on, and that'll work. That'll work just fine. And same thing. One of the most difficult decals to put on these is these. If you'll notice on this one, the orange does not extend all the way out. It's just kind of in the center. That's because these are very difficult to install. They're small, and I've run into times this stuff doesn't stay stuck. In fact, this truck is the only truck that I actually have some of the sticker on the markers. Okay, as you will notice, you go into this one. It's just not there because it's very difficult. A lot of times I've given up. I've basically sometimes like a little bit of an X-Acto knife or something you can pick up the edge with and then rub it in really good, and that does it. Okay, so you get your accessory. So so you get all those accessories on. Another thing I would also make sure you do is make sure all the screws are tight, and you don't really need to wrench on them. You just really need to these parts are plastic. You just really need to bottom them out. And that'll do it. And usually, yes, you can run these pretty good out of the box. But a few things that will help these trucks, just a few little parts that are not that expensive. One thing is tires. You can get the kit tires, which all my trucks have kit tires on them, because they're, well, except for this one. This one does not. This one has stock. This is pretty much a completely stock truck. And they have a plasticky feel to them. So you do the kit tires off WPL, and they're nice and soft. And the nice thing is, these tires are only about $10, if I remember right. You get all four for right around $10. And you take the tires on. Now you will need to glue these on to the wheel. There's no foams, but it's a definite increase. One thing that makes these particular trucks difficult about putting different wheels on them is that they have a 5mm hex, which is what the wheels slide onto. They do have adapters where you could go to like a 7mm, which is usually about the size of what comes on like C24s and stuff like that. And you could run an SCX24 style wheel and tire. And other things that I've always noticed on these that become issues that are a little on the, well, you can break them. I wouldn't call them fragile exactly, is the drive shafts. So another good mod upgrade out of the box would be metal drive shafts. And then usually with the tires and the metal drive shafts, it should run pretty good for you. But at some point, especially if you have the older ones here, get one of the older ones here with the 180 motor instead of the 260, is as you get in further, there are upgrades. There's a 2-speed gearbox. There's a single-speed gearbox with a 370. You can actually get the counter-rotating gearbox directly from WPL to put in your truck. However, one thing you will need to do, if you do that, is you will need to flip the axle. Otherwise, they will turn different directions, which I have done here. And so basically, yes, there are other upgrades. And other upgrades are, you can upgrade the axles. This is a WPL axle. You get these from WPL. In fact, these are metal axles. These are actually the most expensive parts on WPL website. They're about $40-50. And yeah, front and rear. These are metal. You do have to shim the cover a little bit for the gear mesh. And I've really never had too many issues with these axles. They've always been good to me. And then you're gonna skip trucks there. And then there is also what I call AliExpress, eBay, whatnot, specials axles. They're very similar in construction. The links are different. One thing you will need to do when you get these axles is that you will need to completely disassemble them, and you'll have to grease gears, and then you will also have to put Loctite on any screws that go into metal, which is pretty much all of them. Otherwise, you'll have screws back out, and then you got to find screws to replace them, which has been my experience. And also, like, another thing you got to do is, like the set screws, for instance. You got to get the set screws. You got to put Loctite on them. You got to get them on. Make sure you get them on the flat. Otherwise, you do end up with some play there, which that's one of the things I don't really like about these particular axles. And another thing you can do if you have a 3D printer is you can go on Thingiverse and other sites. Thingiverse is the main one, and you can print all kinds of stuff. There are bumpers on there. You could print a rear bumper. You can print roll bars. There's electronics trays. There's actually where they print hinges to where you can make the hood open, which this is not an opening hood. Essentially, this is where the battery goes in case you don't know that. And so they have that. They also have like different rock sliders you can do. They've got a lot of stuff you can print. And actually for a lot of the little RCs, there's the MN, there's a limited amount, but for some of the WPL stuff, they got a pretty good amount of like 3D printed stuff, which is kind of your friend. But yeah, you can do all kinds of stuff with these. I've gotten where I really like these. And they have been coming out with other models after these that I won't get into because it's not about those particular vehicles. But these are by far one of WPL's most popular rigs. I don't know if I said it before, but you go on the WPL website, C24s are sold out right now as of this video, which I think says a lot. There's just a lot you can do with these trucks. I think they're pretty capable for their size and for what you pay for them. Okay, one thing I did here with these trucks, okay, is I actually recently bought, now this blue body was on a different truck. I recently got it. What I did is I did swap bodies around. Okay, so the C14 was on this chassis that this body is on. Okay, and this is the new truck. This is what the blue truck was. And I ended up putting the beater body on it. And this chassis was under the beater truck. So I did a little bit of switching around. Basically, I wanted a stock Toyota looking body again, which I haven't had in a long time. I've had a number of these. So, yeah, this one has all the good stuff on it. Now, one thing I'm doing with this, I'm kind of doing a beater truck here. It's got a broken windshield. It's got different color panels on it. I need to get in here with a little bit of red paint and cover up the marks from the glue. So we've got a drive line, a bucket, a hoe, an axe, a link, suspension link, a mirror, a tail light, and another light, and a wiper blade to do some of the beaterish. And I'm also in the process of trimming the back of the bed. Like I said, there's a lot of things you can do to these. Custom paint. You can do all kinds of accessories in the bed. They make roof racks. They make all kinds of stuff for these. They make metal bumpers even for these. But if you've gotten one of these, I think you'll find you did a good choice. Now, granted, they're not of the caliber of Traxxas or Axial or anything like that, but that's really not the point. Being like a comp rig. These are basically to be enjoyed on the cheap. And, for what you pay for them, they're pretty decent. So, yeah, that's my point here. Cheap, these are inexpensive trucks, and you can really do a lot with them. And really, now it's pretty much where, for the price of one of Walmart's new Bright RC rock crawlers, which are kind of a joke, you can buy one of these. Granted, it's a smaller truck, a little bit smaller truck, being 1/16 scale, and the Walmart ones are like 1/14 scale. Anyways, These are worlds ahead of anything you find at Walmart. Because the stuff at Walmart is not proportional. You cannot repair them. They're very, very difficult to repair. They don't have screws. So if you're watching this, getting into the hobby and looking at this truck, these are not a bad way to get into the hobby. You'll find you'll like these. Most people find they like these and do some upgrades on them. I personally have had Axial. I have had Traxxas. I have had Viterra. I have had a lot of different crawlers, ranging from 1/24 scale up to 1/10 scale. And I like these because they're inexpensive. They're so inexpensive to run, inexpensive to upgrade, to where, like a good for instance on this, the tire, like I said, these tires are $10. And you go get tires for anything else, you're spending at least, $40, unless it's online somewhere and you find a good deal. But yeah, these are very, very, very cool trucks. And I'm going to say probably one of their best trucks as far as upgrades and capability. They do have some other trucks that are really nice. But for the money, I think these are the way to go. But like I said, I have some events coming up that I'm going to do with these. So stay tuned. Subscribe to be notified when I do that. And if you like my content in this video, be sure to hit that like button.